Hello. Today we're going to be talking about modular modeling with Autodesk Maya. So what is modular modeling? If you do a quick Google search or internet search on modular modeling, you will see that modular modeling is the process of making environments, both internal and external, out of different sections that you can piece together to make more complex scenes. You can do, again, internal, external views. You can do structures that are made by people, or you could do more organic stuff. And there's a lot of different techniques on how to apply this. It can be sci-fi, all kinds of different things. And the goal here is if you do make these pieces modularly modeled and you put the time into it, it could save you many, many hours on the actual level building process as you snap things together and make more complex scenes by constantly using these pieces. And then you could even go even further once you're in the engine and layer the complexity and make other sections that you can also use as building blocks for your levels. So in this demo, I'm going to stick to mostly cartoon-based modeling for the sake of time. So it'll be relatively simple, but the principles that I will showcase here will hopefully help you in your own modular modeling process. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to start out with some sort of reference-based shaped cube. And you don't technically have to do all these steps. Some people don't use these. Some people do them more. They lean on other things. Again, there's more than one way of doing this. But I tend to be when I do go into modular modeling, I tend to go to the extreme of making things snap as much as possible. Meaning, I also want to keep the points aligned on grids, as well as tend to have a set unit space that I want to keep them inside the game engine. So in this case, I built a reference cube here that's 2 units width, 8 height, depth of 10. Now, it might change from this, but what would allow me to do is if I built some other units and other pieces of walls and went into the game or made copies of this and said, okay, I'm going to move this 10 units in this direction, these will automatically be attached, assuming we have the vertexes laid out nicely for them. So I tend to try to keep these attached as much as possible. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that cube for later reference in case I need it. You never know. Now, what I'm going to start doing here, and I can always back up and come in here, but I'm going to start modeling through the process. Again, I'm going to keep this fairly low poly as I move through here, but I'm going to go ahead and do some modeling here. So I use the multi-cut tool to cut down here. Maybe I'll come in and do some things. I just did a simple cube with a single bevel. I'll duplicate this, and again, I'm going to stay very cartoony. Now, things that are going to be useful for you here. Uh, Grid snapping is the X key in Autodesk. So if you're moving an object, in this case, like I said, if I move this to the middle and hold down X, it's going to snap to that point. And I'm just going to kind of snap that first one, or maybe I'll make sure it snaps to one of these, but I don't really mind if it doesn't match here, but I do try to snap as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of move these around. And I'm just going to add a few divisions in here using the multi-cut tool, Control-Shift-X. Maybe I will rough this shape up a bit, or like I said, I'm going to go for a more cartoony aspect type of thing here. So maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll grab these verts and I will move them up a bit. And what matters here is at the end is that these verts, whatever ones we want to snap, is I want them to snap to be on the same, ideally, this grid. Now, technically, they don't have to be. We can have them go into the other model, so this would probably be fine as well. But when you go to snap your models in Engine, you're probably going to be grabbing from a single point on this grid, ideally. So for example, if I were to, let's go ahead and just build this out, just kind of showcase, and we can see. Maybe I'll go ahead and build this one out a little bit more. Let's go ahead and add a couple divisions here. So we'll go here. Maybe I'll make this one a little bit rougher. Bring this in. So something like that maybe. And then I'll just go ahead and complete this process as I go. Kind of get this. Maybe I'll do this one a little bit like that, and kind of come down with that. Sure. So I have these these bricks up here that are very, very simplistic, but you know, those are fine. And we would ideally combine geometry that we want to use this unit mainly to reduce the you know the cost that the engine has to render it. Engines will always render a little bit better the more you combine, i.e., merge things together, um, and it will help your engine save on that memory. So what I'm going to do for this first attempt here, when you know we'll just kind of go through it, is I'm just going to leave the beveled edge outside, and I'm just going to kind of move this here, and I'll snap it in a minute, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it right now. I'll do the same thing over here. I think I already did that one, and then I'm going to go ahead and move this middle one. I have a gap now. Technically, there's nothing wrong with having a gap in this case, but maybe I'll move this over here some more. All right. So, and you know what? I could even come in here, and you know, slant these, and you know, maybe make them uneven that way as well. But this is good for now. So I'm going to go ahead and combine all of this just to make this a little bit easier to work with. Go up to Mesh, Combine, and whenever you do combine operations, I always recommend that you delete the history on things. Mine tends to make a lot of garbage nodes when you don't delete the history. So combine, I always recommend delete history, which is under Edit, Delete History by Type History. There you go, and you can see we have this as one piece now. And I can always separate it if I need to go back. So I'm kind of, again, eyeballing this, and that's fine. Now, if I were to duplicate this, and I have, you know, just to test this here, and move this again 10 units, that was what my last demonstration when they were alone, this is what it would look like. It's not great right here, but it would technically work, and it snaps perfectly down here. Now, if this is fine with you, like I said, having geometry go into other geometry, this is absolutely okay. I will probably do a little bit more cleaning up process up there, but I don't like, personally, you know, I don't think that looks bad, but I don't particularly like that. I want it to snap together much cleaner. Now, the other way you can snap things is if you don't want to keep things locked into units, that's fine. But what you can do, and most game engines can actually do this easier than even Maya or Max can do this, as far as I'm aware of, is you can snap things by vertex. And I can only speak to Unity in this regards because that's the engine I know better. But the quick key, thankfully, in this process is a lot of the keys are the same as Maya, so that's convenient. So in Maya, you can move pivot points, you know, by tapping the D key, which this isn't part of Unity, but this is. So if you hold down the V key, Victor key, you can click and hold on a pivot point and move it to a vertex. So that's V stands for vertex. And then I'm going to exit pivot point by hitting the D key. Now, in Unity, you can do this automatically. You don't have to go into pivot point mode, which that's great. You just hold down the V key in Unity, and you can slide your gnomon, your manipulator, to a vertex to snap it, and then just move it after that point. So I mean, now if I hold down the V key and the pivot point's already at a corner, it will snap to pieces of the vertexes. So you see, I can snap to whatever vertex I want. In this case, obviously the bottom makes sense, but sometimes this is great if you're trying to, like, you know, secondary features, and you know they're maybe not quite lined up with the grid. The big pieces usually are, but let's say you're doing like a sci-fi one, you have these pipes and things like that. You might have to do a little more finagling with vertex snapping to get those to line up with the other pipes and things like that. So you can use a series of snappable objects to even add more complexity. So just know that you can vertex snap as well as keep these things in units. I tend to, like I said, I tend to try to shoot for both myself. So there's that example. So let me go ahead and move this back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this shape because I want to keep this, you know, all contained in this object here. So I'm going to select this face. I'm going to grow the selection with Shift period, and then I'm going to move this over. And what's important is that this leading face is on that grid. So we can come right there. And what you can also do is, if you wanted to, you can select this face. I'm just going to go back and select that face, and I can snap this directly by using the X key. So if I hold this down and come into my top view here and just drag this around, you can see it snaps to the grid also. So there it is. It just snapped. Granted, I have a little gap here, but you know, again, I would spend some time maybe modeling this, maybe even bring these pieces together, or have this line up flat with this. Like I said, you can do all kinds of things with this, and you don't have to even combine this. Like I said, I'm just going to slide these pieces in here because, again, it's time. You know, bring these pieces down. These technically doesn't matter what you do with these because they're in the middle. So anything in the middle, you can do whatever you want, really. It's really just making it look good. There you go. And then once again, I'm just gonna move these over so that they are aligned with the grid. This is fine. And then what I'm gonna do is grab this last one again, and then I'm gonna hold on X and snap to that grid. So these are now snapping. Yes, we have a problem with that, but what I would probably do is I would probably just bring this up a little bit more. So something like this into here. So you can see, there you go. We have this piece like this. Now, if you wanted to spend the time to actually sew these together, i.e. divide this top face up and make all these merged into it, that would be great. That would even be better in this regards. But again, you know, this is not we're focusing more on the modular part of this lesson here. So I'm going to go ahead and now duplicate this, bring this over here, and you can see because my things are built to units, I can also just grid snap in Maya. And you can see that they will snap perfectly together. So they are snapping perfectly together as such. Now, so again, I mean, anything you want to do in the middle, you can do at free reign. You can add little cuts in here, maybe some detailing brick on both sides. You can come in here and as long as the edges snap together, and I recommend you keep it low poly as possible on the edges because it's just easier, but technically you can go as high as you want. This is modular modeling. I mean, you can do, you know, as much as you like here. So if I wanted to come in here and let's say put like, you know, maybe make one of these a doorway one, you know, I could do that. What I'll do is I will keep this as my base one, and I'll go ahead and just move this back, and hide this for now, and then I'll move this one back to the origin. And then maybe I will modify this one. Generally, when you do this, you want to make a series of different kinds of models. So I'm going to come in here and make a quick cylinder. I'll go ahead and, again, when I'm doing modular modeling, to try to keep everything unit-based as much as possible. Maybe I'll do 4. Yeah, I'll do 4. So I'll do a radius of 4 here. The height doesn't matter in this particular case. I'm going to go ahead and increase the subdivisions by a bit. I'm going to rotate this cube here, this cylinder here, sorry. Bring this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a boolean. Now, boolean operations, for those who are not familiar with these, are a bit unreliable. So I can't promise you will get the same results. And like I said, they can be a little unfortunate in sometimes. So what I'm going to try to do, we'll see if this even works. I said we were always kind of hoping for the best when we do these, is I'm going to move this down. And I have this piece that I'm going to boolean from this. And this is why, again, why you always make copies in case something breaks. So when you're doing booleans, the object that you're keeping is selected first. The objects you're subtracting are selected second or third or fourth, because you can have many boolean subtractors as you want. I tend to keep it 1 for 1 most of the time. It's usually a good idea to delete history on stuff. I don't think I really have a problem with history, but you know, it's always a great idea to delete history before you do a boolean. And I'm going to do mesh booleans difference here. And you can see I have boolean. Now booleans make very sloppy geometry. It's best to keep them clean as possible, which I did. I tried to keep things lined up. In fact, I could have done a better job because I didn't snap that. Make that 0. That's fine. Try to do this again. Boolean. There we go. It was a fraction off. So there we go. We can see that we have this. This is actually very easy to clean up. Now, booleans, you can have 2 strategies. Generally, if you boolean early, which I consider this an early boolean, it's a good idea to clean up afterwards. If you're doing it late in the game, maybe you don't bother spending as much time cleaning it up. But Generally, you can let the computer triangulate it after that point. Since I did this pretty early on, I'm going to use the multi-cut tool, Control-Shift-X, and I'm going to come in here and just cut these pieces back to get these because I just want to have these not be inside of polygons. An inside of polygon is any polygon with 5 or more verts. So those were inside of polygons. You see it goes around, looks pretty good. This is still a gigantic inside of polygon. I'll worry about that in a minute. What I'll do here first is I'm going to go ahead and select this inner ring here. And I only want from here to here. So what you can do, and it might go the wrong way because technically there's less faces to go around, but what you can do in Maya is if you select one face, hold down Shift, and then double click on the face that you want to go to, it'll draw to that face, and it did. It went through outer way, so you know what I'll do? I'll just kind of, maybe I'll just go like up to here, and then keep going, and I'm just Shift double clicking, and it's going to those points. So I just kind of started a little bit earlier. All right, so now that I have these inner ones, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control E for extrude. I'm going to grab the blue arrow, which is the normal extrude, and I'm going to pull this out. You can see I kind of come in here. You can also, if you're having funky things, you can also use the thickness to get a more stable result. Also, the great thing is you can automatically know the number. So if I do thickness 1 and for some reason I need to refer back to that again, I can do that again. So there we go. I've added a thickness here. And then what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to break this up a bit just because I'm about to try something different. Again, this is my way of delete history. Always be deleting history. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this because I'm doing exploratory modeling here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this top part here, and I'm going to grab the back as well. I'm just holding down Shift, getting these points, and double clicking. And you can see I have these. I'm going to leave these bottom 2 ones down alone here. What I'm going to do once again is I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this keep faces together on. I'm going to turn this to be off. And all you do is click on that. And what it's going to do now, it's going to make a division for each one of these. If I bring these out, it looks the same right now. But if I come in here and mess with the thickness, I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Oh, sorry, I mean offset. And that's way too much offset, but you can see I'm kind of getting this kind of thing going on. If you hold down Control, when you drag up here, it will do this. It won't be as sensitive. So maybe I'll come in here and do something like that. So it's 0.04. So you can see it's kind of too clean right now, but I like where it's going with that. And I think honestly what I would probably do is I should probably have included the bottom ones as well. So maybe I'll undo back and try that again to get to those ones, because I was going to do these ones as a separate one, but I don't think I like that. Or maybe I should just do even less thickness. I'm just going to undo back, and I think I'm going to go ahead and include the bottom of these as well, because I was going to try doing those separately, and I still could come in here, but I think I'm going to leave them together for now. Always scroll around, look and make sure you don't have nothing unattended selected. Do this again, face together off. It was like 0.04, I think, 0.04. I forgot to pull the arrow out a little bit. Oops, that's divisions, not. I meant offset. So we want 1 division and 0.04 on offset. And then we had a very small. See, I don't like the way this looks either. I think this is even worse. See, I don't like this at all. That's what I was actually. So I was right the first time. I don't know. We'll leave it for now. So there you go. We just call this. We can call this our doorway if we want. We have our little doorway arch here. We'll call it arch. Again, delete history. And now I have a base. I'm going to go ahead and hold on to this one just in case I want to try something else later. Now I have a base and an archway. And what I could do is I could come in here and, maybe mess with these base ones, but I'm going to stay away from the ones over here. Oh, here's another thing we noticed. You're going to want to eventually snap pieces together. If it bothers you, In this case, it doesn't because it's hewn, but you generally do want to bring pieces together and make sure they snap to each other as well. Now, if again, it doesn't bother me and mine because it works out because these are like natural cube, stonework here. But if I needed these to match, let's say it's like a pipe or something more precision, what you would do is you would come in and select these vertexes and hold on select the vertex, hold on the V key, and you could snap to the other points and make those snap. Again, I don't have to worry about that. But again, if you needed to, bring one of your pieces to side by side, hold on the V key, snap to the other side as well, so they snap in that direction as well. I'm not going to do that because, like I said, I don't need to in mine. In fact, I might even break mine up a little bit more. I'm going to come in here and kind of just make these a little bit different so they're all different. Maybe I'll grab these ones. And again, I'm just doing a very quick surface here to kind of good enough. There we go. And then what I'll do is I have my arch, I have my base. I'll make an alt version of this. And then what I would do is I would probably come in here, and make this just have different things. Maybe this is kind of more built in. Obviously, there might be some more details on the walls, so I'll kind of build this up as well. Kind of come in here and try that in a second. So this will be my alt wall. I'll just call it alt for now. So there's my alt wall, my base wall, and then we can build this up. So we have this wall here that we can do. Now, the other thing that you can do that's very common to do is to build something that is an edge piece or a joint piece. There's two ways of approaching this. You can build out a wall and model an edge piece in here. Like, for example, maybe model this as a corner if you wanted to. And then what you would do is you would have, a corner that, I'm just going to kind of show this roughly. Something like this, where you model the corner out and you kind of, you model this into there. This doesn't look half bad actually already, but you would model a corner piece of some kind. Now the other option you can do is you can make some sort of thing to cover up in the middle. Generally, what I in this example, I can just do pillars or something. Again, dungeon's very easy in that regards. So I'm going to make sure my dungeon thing, I'm just going to keep these even numbers, mainly so I can refer back to them. I'll do 3, 3, and the height I'm not too concerned about. And then I'm going to snap this in to C. All right, and again, I'm just using grid snap because again, you have these same snapping functions in game engine. So you could do something like this, where I would snap this together. You know what? That looks fine. Maybe I'll bevel this top face right here. Select that face, Control B. It's too much of a fraction there. There we go. Now I'm going to come and extrude this part right here. Bring this up. Maybe I'll take this all the way past that part. Control E for another extrusion. I'm going to go ahead. Remember how I should have paid attention to the height too, but oh well. There we go. We're just going to come up a bit, and then maybe I'll do another bevel right here. Well, I'll do an extrude. I'll do extrude around the outer edge here, which will accomplish the same thing. Control E, and then there's a face up here that I can drag up to get this part. Normals are all messed up. Let me fix this part real quick. Let me go ahead and scale that down, get that kind of like that. Again, if you ever have normal issues in Maya, what's happening here is Maya's getting confused. It's trying to soften these edges versus hardening them. You can select them and go to mesh, the ones that are the problem, go to mesh display, harden or soften edge. In this case, I'm just going to make all the edges on this model hard edge. There we go. You can see. There's I'm just going to call this my pillar. So here's my pillar that I snapped to the corners. I'm just going to use this. And I'm going to make sure it looks good. What you always want to do is you always want to freeze the transformations at the origin. What that means is move the object to the origin if you're modeled somewhere else, and then make sure it's, you center the pivot point, snap it in the top view. The rest of views don't matter as much, but the top view at the very least. And then if it has numbers here, you go to modify freeze transformations. What this does is it tells the computer that this is where it should be at when it's at the origin. It's very crucial when you're doing exporting to game engines. So when you export everything, you should ideally export it from the origin. And that's how you get, if you don't do that, it's how you get weird offsets and things like that. Where it says it's in one place, but it's in another. So again, I advise that you do that. As you can see, when I move these now, I can move it 15 units and it kind of looks perfect over there. I'm just going to duplicate this. The copies don't matter. 15, you can see 15, negative 15. This is 10. Again, I tend to go all in when I do my modular modeling. And I have an alt and a base. And if I come back here now and rotate this, again, this would all be done typically in Game Engine, but I'm just testing it in here. I can move this stuff around. And again, I'm just using my grid snap, which you can also again do in engines. And we have our walls here that we can make. In fact, we'll just kind of play with the whole idea of this being just like just a real simple room. So there we go. So we got the simple little dungeon room that I can go into. And like I said, what level designers can do is they might take your pieces and they might make what's called a prefab in the game engine also, so they don't have to remake this room every time. So they can even build building blocks out of your building blocks and build them up. Now, what typically would happen to keep this so looking not so repetitive is after this process, what you would also have is you would do set dressing, which would also have pieces such as maybe like little barrels or maybe even little banners that hangs on the wall. Those would be built out as different pieces, and then you could, level builders and designers would go in and put those decorations on to keep the repetitive process from going, the pieces looking too repetitive, so it's not obvious. Those would be modeled out of single assets that you would export and you would provide. But yeah, I mean, this is essentially the process here. How many pieces you make is really up to you. Obviously, the more pieces, the less the less repetitive it will look. I tend to build, in this case, I'm building a dungeon, so maybe I'll build an archway, a doorway, maybe some windows or something. Maybe like maybe like three or four different wall versions, maybe some corner pieces, maybe a part that's broken. So you can make all these pieces, and there are things for you're giving toys to your level designers or yourself if you're doing the level design process to build the more complex things in engine, because you don't want to build the complete level out in a modeling program. You build out a single one of these. So I export my one arch, I export my one main base wall, I export each one of my alt walls one time, I export the pillar once, and all the repetitive building is done inside the game engine. So this is pretty much your guide to modular modeling. Again, it's modeling, but the key takeaways here is all the snapping and keep the things lined up to edges as much as possible. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Keep on creating with Maya, and I will see you all next time.